Hello and welcome to a new vlog and trip report. Today we're taking a look at days 5 and 6 of our first cruise with the Swiss Crown. After visiting Middelburg, Ghent and Antwerp, we're now heading to Maastricht back in the Netherlands and then on to Roermond. Here on the map we can see the route. We're actually starting a little bit earlier with the arrival into Maastricht, seeing the most spectacular part of the Albert Canal, and then we're continuing on to Roermond, and then we have a beautiful afternoon of sailing on the River Meuse down to Nijmegen, where we will be arriving in the night. In the last video we have left Antwerp in the evening and then we were sailing on the Albert Canal, which is not seeing cruise ships frequently, so that's already something special, and the most interesting part of the canal are the last few meters. We are reaching the most spectacular part of the Albert Canal. This part, the canal cuts through a limestone massif in a up to 65 meters deep gorge, and on this location there also used to be the Fort Eben-Emael, largely underground fortification built during the Second World War, and the deep cut also served as a defensive moat, and you can still see some remains of the fort nowadays. Parts of the fort are also open to visitors nowadays as a museum, and as you can see there's also an impressive pedestrian suspension bridge that spans the gorge, which is leading to the museum. So it is the most interesting and most beautiful part of the canal. We were passing this part quite early in the morning, so I was waking up pretty early. Most guests were still sleeping, but I didn't want to miss it. Directly after this gorge we are reaching the Lock of Lanai with 4 chambers and a difference in altitude of around 15 meters, which connects the Albert Canal with the Canal de Lanai, which then brings us to the River Meuse. Here we are reaching the end of the gorge, and then we have to turn to the left very sharply to reach the chambers of the lock. Just a few minutes after leaving the lock, we are approaching the city of Maastricht. A very beautiful city we have visited also last year during our Christmas shopping cruise with a Swiss Diamond, and we were very impressed by the city and the Christmas market. Of course, there's no Christmas market in the summer season, but still the city is very beautiful with a lot of sights. There was no excursion in the morning, so our guests and also we had some time to discover the city on our own, and the excursions were then starting in the afternoon. Most guests chose a walking tour through Maastricht, so there were 3 groups going on this walking tour through the beautiful city of Maastricht, but there was also a smaller second excursion, which was a wine tasting. Of course, wine is not the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Maastricht or the Netherlands, but at Thyssen Wijnkopers, a company with a tradition of more than 300 years, you can have a fantastic wine tasting. It's a high-class wine tasting. It does not only feature high-quality wines, but also gourmet-style food pairing to the wines. So each wine was paired with a little snack, which was fantastic. Probably because the tour was in English, only a handful of our German guests booked this excursion, so we were only 6 persons in total. So it was a very intimate atmosphere. In addition to the wine tasting, there was also a guided tour through the beautiful wine cellars of Thyssen, which was also very spectacular. As you can see, very beautiful and interesting wine cellars down below the city center of Maastricht. And what's even cooler is that Thyssen even has a small vineyard in the middle of the city. So we're right in the heart of the city and there's a small vineyard. So that's also pretty interesting. The wine tasting was fantastic. It was quite sad that only a handful of guests were joining us, but it was a very good experience. Also the wines were fantastic and the food pairing was amazing. After that, we went back on board and it was time for another fantastic dinner. This time I opted for an Asian style dinner. What I really like is that since this season there are new menus and also an additional fourth option for dinner, not only meat, fish and vegetarian, but also an easier dish or a local dish. So that's not fine dining or high cuisine, it's a simple dish, so that's also quite nice if you don't want to have the high cuisine every evening. The next morning we were docked in Roermond, we were sailing there overnight, and of course again the main destination in Roermond is the MacArthur Glen designer outlet, one of the biggest designer outlets in Europe with an almost uncountable amount of shops. It's fantastic for shopping, so of course most of our guests were shopping. But also the city is beautiful. We have seen that the last time when we were there. This time we had a lunch outside of the ship because my favorite restaurant chain, Wagamama's, which is mainly from the UK, also has a few restaurants in the Netherlands but none in Germany, so to take the chance to have lunch at Wagamama's. In the afternoon we were then leaving Roermond, heading on to our next destination in Nijmegen. To get there we have to turn around, as we were also turning around in the morning to dock in Roermond. And this time we can use the lock of Roermond. Last time we were here we had to make a pretty big detour as the lock was under renovation, but now it's open again, so we can use the direct route and continue on to Nijmegen. Whilst we were going into the lock, it was also time for the high tea time, which means that there's a huge selection of cake and dessert and sweets during the coffee time. As you can see, it is a huge buffet. It was very tasty. And in the meantime, we were sailing downstream on the river Meuse. One of the most beautiful parts is sailing past the city of Kessel. It's just a rather small city, but there is the Kasteel de Keverberg, which we can see here, and that's quite interesting because it was destroyed in World War II and has been reconstructed in a modern style in 2014. We're then going past a village with several monasteries, and then we are reaching Venlo. This time we're going through Venlo without stopping. On our last cruise we were stopping here in Venlo, but this time we're heading directly to Nijmegen, sailing past Venlo and also sailing past Kuik, also a beautiful city we visited last time. But this time we haven't visited Nijmegen yet, unlike last time. That's why we don't need the stops in between and we can go directly to Nijmegen, and we will still be there already around midnight. So we could have left Roermond also later to have more time in the city, but for us one of the most important things about a river cruise is the cruising itself. So for us this is the most beautiful part of a river cruise, to sit on the sun deck, read a nice book, have a nice drink and just enjoy the scenery going past the beautiful landscape. That's something a lot of other companies are missing, as they are only sailing in the night and you stay in port the whole day. Of course then you have more time to discover the cities, but actually you're not doing a cruise, you're just staying in a hotel that happens to be in a different city every day. That's also nice and interesting, but it's not what a cruise is about. After a nice afternoon of sailing, it was then time for another nice dinner, and again I opted for the Asian option, and then we headed back up to the sun deck to enjoy the beautiful sailing during sunset. In the evening we were then trying to save a bee with some sugar water. I'm not pretty sure we actually saved the bee because she was on the moving ship, so probably way too far away from her hive to survive, but at least we tried. We were then sailing past Kuik, a city we visited last time just for technical reasons because of the schedule, but we were surprised by how beautiful the city actually is and how much it actually has to offer, but this time we're sailing past the city, heading to Nijmegen. Just a few minutes later we were then leaving the river Meuse to get to the Maas-Waal Canal, which connects the Meuse with the river Waal. It's an around 13.5 kilometers long canal that saves us a detour of around 100 kilometers. To protect the canal from high and low water, there is the lock Heumen, which consists of a traditional lock which usually is constantly open, and this gate, this barrier, which will only be lowered when there's high or low water. So we can just pass right through it, and now we're sailing on the Maas-Waal Canal. Then we have to go through one more lock, the lock of Wörth, and then we are already approaching Nijmegen, and there we will continue in the next video. Here you can see when this video will be uploaded and the name of the song. As always, I'd like to say thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then. Or maybe one day on board. More information about our cruises can be found on reisejung.de.